Hello students. Today's lecture we're going to be discussing the Texas Legislature. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the course, in Texas we have a bicameral, B-I-C-A-M-E-R-A-L, a bicameral legislature. Simply means our legislature consists of two chambers. The upper chamber is called the Senate. The lower chamber is called the House of Representatives. Our legislative body, each chamber, is elected from a smaller geographical area called a district. So our state senators represent a certain district. Our state House members represent certain districts. One thing that all these districts have in common is each district, whether it be a House district or a Senate district, must have approximately equal representation. Each district must have approximately the same number of people. Why? Well, there was a court case called Reynolds versus Sims, and the holding or the idea is one person's vote is supposed to equal another person's vote in strength. So what we saw, what the Supreme Court decided, is that each district had to have approximately the same number of people. Well, you're probably sitting there saying one vote is one vote. One equals one. How is this not the same? Imagine I have 30 people. And I'm going to create 3 districts. And I create districts, it's got to be equal, or approximately equal. So I create 3 districts of 10 people each. So I ask a question, what are we voting on today? What's for dinner? Tacos or hamburgers? District 1 says tacos. District 2 says hamburgers. District 3 says hamburgers. Therefore, we are having hamburgers for dinner. Why? In the Texas Legislature, it's not our individual votes that count, that matter. It's the districts. It's the state representatives. So in this case, with these 3, 2 districts said hamburgers, 1 said tacos. So 2 districts to 1 said we're having hamburgers, so 2 to 1, they won. That's what we're having for dinner. Now, take these same 30 people, and I'm going to redraw my districts. In District 1, I put 3 people. In District 2, I put 3 people. In District 3, I put the remaining 24 people. Same question, what do you want for dinner? District 1, unanimously, all 3 says tacos. District 2, unanimously, all 3 say tacos. District 3, unanimously, all 24 say hamburgers. What are we having for dinner? We're having tacos. But wait a second. You said 24 votes to 6. Hamburgers versus tacos. You're right. I did. But remember, the legislature doesn't work on our votes. They work on the vote by district. So even though one huge district unanimously said hamburgers, the 2 smaller districts said tacos. Do these 6 people's vote? There we go. Does their vote count more than the 24 votes? Yes, it does. This is what we are trying to avoid with Reynolds versus Sims. So we want every district to have approximately the same number of people. Well, that's great, that's fine, but how do we know how many people we have in Texas? Easy. Every 10 years, the United States is required to conduct a census. I've included a link to the Texas population in 2010. Based on this census information, we know how many people need to have, or how many districts need to have how many people. Texas, as of 2010, 25 million people that needed to be divided. So this number, this population number, is used to redraw our congressional districts. It's used to redraw our House districts. It's used to redraw our Senate districts. After the 2010 census, after redistricting, we redrew these districts to make them even. Each senator represented approximately 800,000 people. Each senator represented approximately 800,000 constituents. 150 House members. Each member represented approximately 160,000 constituents. They represented approximately 160,000 people. Now, if you look at these last bullet points, 31 Senate districts after redistricting, 150 House districts after redistricting, there's things that you can infer in here. And I tell my students, part of college is learning how to read something and draw parallels or infer information. 31 Senate districts. How many senators do we have in the Texas State Senate? Well, we can look at this and figure, well, if we only have one Senate per district, or one senator per district, and we have 31 Senate districts, we have 31 senators. Same thing for the House. 150 House districts, we have 150 House members. We could look at this. Well, let me ask another question by looking at this. Which job is more prestigious? Why? And you can answer this in two ways. Well, we can look at these numbers, and the first thing we could say, well, the Senate job is more prestigious because A, there's less senators and House members, which would be a correct answer. But another way we could look at it is that the senators, they represent a high percent more people than the House members do. So based on their job, based on how few of them there are, how many people they represent, we can say the Senate is more prestigious. If we just knew this, if we were just looking at this numbers and we didn't know anything else, could we guess the population of Texas just looking at this information? Well, yeah, we could. How? It's easy. Just multiply the number of districts by the number of constituents. Multiply 31 by 800,000, multiply 150 by 160,000. Now we're going to get approximately 25 million. So we can look at these points and come up with additional information. That's part of college. This is what we want you to learn how to do, is just kind of, look below the surface, read between the lines, whatever you want to call it. Now, when we're drawing these districts, something occurs called gerrymandering. Let's watch a video.
Is it one of those psychological tests where what you see is supposed to reveal deep truth about often the shape of the political district make a vote not count as equally. That's where gerrymandering. Just wait. So, political district lines are usually drawn by the state legislature and approved by the governor. But it's possible to draw those district maps in such a way that one party will have an advantage in future elections. And that's gerrymandering, when districts have been drawn to manipulate political power in favor of one party. How? Well, it's all in how you draw the line. Let's take this tiny rectangular state. Suppose there are exactly 50 people in the state, living in 5 rows of houses. And there's a water tower, maybe a windmill, and a lake. Wait, no, too easy, no lake. 60% of the people always vote for the Green Party. 40% always vote red. The state is split into 5 districts. To have perfect representation, you would want to arrange the districts like this. The state would be represented by 3 people from the Green Party and 2 from the red. This matches the 60-40 partisan split. Perfect. But what if the state has been gerrymandered? Let's see what mischief we can get up to if we use district lines to manipulate political power. If we draw the line this way, we could favor the Green Party. 3 of every 5 votes in each district are blue. So blue wins every seat and red gets clobbered. Even though 40% of residents vote red, they won't have any Or we can get really creative with our district lines. When we draw the lines like this, we get 3 red seats and 2 blue seats. Red beats blue 60-40, the exact opposite of the state's actual demographics. So now that our districts have been gerrymandered, what does that mean for the good voters of our state? We talked to Tom Wolf, a lawyer from the Brennan Center for Public Policy, about how gerrymandering affects democracy.
First, it prevents them from having legislatures that are accountable. Basically, the way legislators will draw the maps is to make it very hard for them to lose elections. And when they don't feel losing elections, they become less likely to respond to comments and views from their constituents. So in theory, our legislatures should be like mirrors of the populations they represent. When partisan gerrymandering gets into the mix, the politicians are deciding what the legislature is going to look like, not the voters.
Well, that sounds pretty dire, but this doesn't really happen, does it? In the 2012 election for the Wisconsin State Legislature, using a district map drawn when the Republican Party was in power, Republicans won only 48.6% of the vote, but won 60% of the seats in the state assembly. Pretty much the exact thing we saw in our most extreme example. So yes, this does happen. This is actually District 7 in Pennsylvania. Gerrymandering may sound like a thing of the past, but it's disenfranchising people around the nation today. The Supreme Court is reviewing the Wisconsin State Legislative map now, and this case could have really far-reaching consequences.
If the plaintiffs win, the Supreme Court rules that partisan gerrymandering is unconstitutional, then Wisconsin's General Assembly map will have to be redrawn by the legislature. But there are also other maps around the country that then may become unconstitutional. There are about 6 congressional maps currently that are extreme gerrymanders, so they might be unconstitutional too. There are probably also about a dozen or so state legislative maps that might also be unconstitutional.
To be clear, both sides are guilty when it comes to gerrymandering, and both parties have members ready to speak up against it.
Both Democrats and Republicans are now to say that the courts needed to take strong action to limit or eliminate partisan gerrymandering.
So we know this is serious and affects our democracy. But what can you do about it? As voters, turns out you can actually partially control the future of gerrymandering. District maps aren't forever. They're redrawn every 10 years. That means the people you elect will be the people in power who draw the new district maps. You want them to look like this? Or this? Perfect. So ask your legislators how they think a fair redistricting process should be handled. Make them squirm. After all, it's only the future of the country.
Okay, I hope that video helped explain gerrymandering. And she said a couple of important things that I'm going to reiterate. But the first one, she was discussing gerrymandering at the federal level. She was discussing the state legislature gerrymandering our U.S. House of Representatives map. Gerrymandering can happen at the House, the U.S., the federal level, and at the state level. And we see an example of this. We have an example of Texas and gerrymandering. Okay, now remember that districts have to have approximately the same number of people living in them. So we know this because every 10 years, the U.S. government will conduct a census. They will try to count or get an approximate count of the number of people in the states. This information is used to draw the United States House of Representatives districts. It is used to draw state districts. So this is the information we're going to use to draw Texas districts. This is the information we're going to use to draw, well, Texas districts, I meant the House districts and the Senate districts. So we have a census in 2020. We get this information, so when the Texas Legislature convenes in 2021, one of the things they will have to do is draw districts. They will have to redraw districts. Texas is going to, we gain population. We are a growing state. Every day, every month, every year we gain. So we know that our districts are going to have to be redrawn. If we look at Texas and gerrymandering, we have to go back to 2000. If we look at the 2000 map, this is going to refer, or excuse me, if we look at the 2000 census, this is going to refer to Texas and our U.S. House representation. This is what this story is about, Texas and our U.S. House representation. Democrats control the Texas Legislature in 2000. So these new census numbers come out. We have to redraw the census, or we have to redraw the map in 2001. So the Democrats, while in control of the legislature, they gerrymander this. They draw these maps for political gain. They draw the U.S. House maps to favor Democrats. Well, in 2002 election, remember, and I mentioned this earlier, the Republicans win the state legislature. Republicans outvoted Democrats about 55 to 45%. So not by much. But in 2003, the House minority leader is a guy by the name of, from Sugar Land, U.S. Rep. DeLay, Tom DeLay. There we go. And he comes to Texas and he asks the state legislature, guys, Republicans control Texas government. We have a Republican in the governor's mansion. Republicans have a majority in the Texas legislature. 55% of Texans voted Republican last year. So in the U.S. House, why do Democrats outnumber Republicans from Texas, the Texas delegation? Why did Texas elect more Democrats than Republicans? Republicans at the state level say, well, when we redrew our map in 2001, Democrats were in control. You know, we will fix it. We will redraw these maps in 2011. And U.S. Representative DeLay says, well, why wait? Why not do it now? And Texas legislative Republicans say, hey, that's a good question. Why not do it now? So they decide they're going to redistrict. They're going to redraw these maps in 2003. How do the Democrats react? They say, no, I don't think so. You know, we redraw these maps after every census. We redraw these maps every 10 years. We redrew the maps in 2001. You can't redraw the maps until 2011. So the matter goes to court. There's some other stuff going on. But the matter goes to court, and the court rules that Texas, the legislature, can redistrict. They can redraw their maps whenever they want to. So Republicans say, all right, let's do it. And they redraw districts to favor Republicans. Is it legal to gerrymander? Is it legal to redraw these districts? It depends on how you do it. Well, not so much how you do it, I'm sorry. It depends on intent. What is your intent when you do it? So there are 4 tactics to gerrymandering. A couple of them are legal. One is illegal. And one can be iffy. The first tactic to gerrymandering, and this was mentioned in the video, is parties will draw these districts to protect political power or to gain political power. They will draw these districts for a partisan purpose, for a political purpose in mind. Is it legal for a party to draw a district to protect political power? This was that Supreme Court case that she mentioned when she said, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin or whoever. There was actually 2 or 3 cases. And the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the state legislature. They said, yes, you can gerrymander to protect political parties, to elect political power. So protecting power is perfectly legal. The second reason, I am going to attempt to reduce minority voting power. Research tells us that historically, minorities vote for the Democratic Party. So we're going to gerrymander, and like she did with the red and blue blocks, we're going to create districts where Anglos have a slight majority over minorities. The intent is, the belief is, if Anglos have the majority, they will go out and vote. They will elect an Anglo. So if we are doing this, if we're going to gerrymander to diffuse minority voting power to prevent minorities from getting elected, is this legal? No. The third tactic is we're going to create something called a majority-minority district. We're going to make the majority of the people in this district a minority. Is this legal? I would argue that it's going to depend on how well you can lie to the court, because they're going to ask you your intent. Were you trying to prevent minorities from winning elections, from getting elected, from representing? Here's the answer. Say, once again, you have 5 districts, and you make District 4 75% Hispanic, you make District 5 75% African American. And for District 1, 2, and 3, you make them like 55-60% Anglo. Well, we figure District 1, 2, and 3 is going to elect an Anglo. Now, is this diffusing minority voting power by creating this majority-minority district? You could argue, yes, this still is. Because while the numbers indicate that a minority, a Hispanic will win District 4, African American will win District 5, do they have a chance of winning all 5 seats? Do they have a chance of winning all 5 districts? The answer is no. So that could be your argument. This is why you could say that this is biased. The other hand, the Texas Legislature could say, we aren't doing this because we're biased. We figure that by creating a district that was 75% Hispanic, that was 75% African American, we believe that they are going to elect a Hispanic. They're going to elect an African American. We are creating this majority-minority district not to prevent them from having a shot to win all 5 seats, but at least to get minorities into the legislature, to diversify. We will get minorities in with these majority-minority districts. Sound good? Yeah. Is it true? Maybe. Who knows? Want another quick little video? A Texas gerrymandering case did go to the Supreme Court. So there's a video on a more recent redistricting issue that made it up to the Supreme Court and involved Texas. That was one of those, that would have been number 2. The state legislature was trying to diffuse, they were trying to reduce minority voting power. The last tactic, the fourth tactic, is something called the pairing. P-A-I-R-I-N-G. P-A-I-R-I-N-G. The pairing technique. What you're going to learn in a few minutes is to represent a district, you have to live in your district. So what we might see is if we're going to redistrict, we're going to redraw our district lines. The Texas Legislature, controlled by Republicans, they look over the state of Texas and they see these 2 Democratic districts. These are what are called safe seats, and it was mentioned in this Texas and gerrymandering video. A safe seat is it is drawn to protect or to elect a person from a certain political party. So we have these 2 districts that we know are going to elect Democrats. And no matter what Republican we put up against these Democrats, are going to win. Might be District 1 and District 2. Well, in the pairing technique, we redraw District 1, District 2, District 3, all of this stuff. But we're going to combine a portion of District 1 with a portion of District 2. And we're going to combine it in such a way that the representative from District 1 and the representative from District 2 now live in the same district. Why would we do that? Remember what I said. To represent a district, you have to live in your district. So now that means that to represent Texas, the original representative from District 1 has to run against the original representative from District 2. So you have a Democrat versus a Democrat. Who's going to win? A Democrat. We know that. That's not a big deal. We started off with a Democrat in District 1. We end up with a Democrat in District 1. So then what was the point? Well, it is our hope that the way we drew District 2, that they will elect a Republican. What if they don't? What if they elect a Democrat? Well, we started off with 2 Democrats. We ended up with 2 Democrats. Did we lose any power? Did we lose anything in the attempt? No. But what if we get lucky? District 1 elected a Democrat, but District 2 elected a Republican. Thanks to this pairing technique, we have increased our political or party power. Is the pairing technique legal? Yes, it is. I have included a couple of links here. You can go look. I wanted you to understand what gerrymandering was. But these are the top 5 ugliest districts, partisan gerrymandering, top 10 most gerrymandered districts in the United States. These districts are from the U.S. House of Representatives. You can look and see how these maps don't make any sense. Now, in the original video, the one explaining gerrymandering, she said something that was very important, and I want you to remember. Gerrymandering can happen at both the state and federal level. Which party gerrymanders? I mentioned Republicans, but that's because they were in charge of Texas at the time. Both parties gerrymander. So this explains our bicameral legislature, the districts they represent, how these districts are drawn. Now I want to start looking at our representatives. How do you get elected? I'm going to go over the qualifications for member of the Texas Legislature, formal qualifications, These are going to be the qualifications found in the Texas Constitution. We're going to start off with the Texas House of Representatives. Well, we have a citizenship requirement. You must be a U.S. citizen. We have an age requirement. Any idea how old that is? How old do you have to be a member of the Texas House of Representatives? It's actually really young. You have to be 21. Have a residency requirement. Remember I told you had to live in the district. You have to live in your district that you wish to represent for 1 year, and you have to live in the state of Texas for 2 years. You must be a registered voter. Guys, these are the formal qualifications. This is all it takes. Is it hard? Basically, stay out of prison, live to 21, be a U.S. citizen, and you're good to go. Almost anybody can do this. Now, if you are a House member, I want to talk about terms. There are two words. I shouldn't have said terms there. There are two ideas you need to know. The first is term length. The second is term limit. Term length is the amount of time you are elected to serve. In the Texas House of Representatives, your term length is 2 years. You are elected to a 2-year term. You are running for re-election every 2 years. Now, term limits. How many terms can you serve? In Texas state government, we do not have term limits. They do not exist. What does that mean? You have unlimited terms. If you can continue to convince people to vote for you, you can go back to and participate. You can be re-elected to the state legislature. It is a job, but it's a part-time job. We say it's part-time, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But it is a job. Job indicates you get paid. And we do pay our legislative bodies. We do pay our elected officials. Do we pay them well? Well, that's a different story. Our Texas House members make $7,200 per year. That is not per month, per week, every 2 weeks. No, that is per year. $600 a month. The leader of the House of Representatives is a position called Speaker of the House. The presiding officer of the House of Representatives is Speaker of the House. Know the position. I'll talk about it again in a few minutes. It's going to be important. I provided a link to the formal House qualifications, but you have them there. For the Texas Senate, well, citizenship, still got to be a U.S. There's a little bit different in age. Instead of 21, you have to be 26. Residency, still have to live in your district for a year, but you have to be a resident of the state, for 5 years. Registered voter. So really the only difference, age, an additional 5 years, state residency, an additional 3. Everything else is the same. Their term. The Senate serves 4-year staggered terms. Now remember, the House serves 2 years. So every 2 years they are being reelected. Staggered terms means we're doing it we're doing it in a partial manner. So, for example, 2020, we'd have 150 House members run for office. We'd have 16 senators run for office. Half of the senators. 2022, all 150 House members are up for re-election, their 2-year term. But in 2022, the other senators, the other half, the additional 15, they are now up for re-election. 2024, all 150 House members are now up for re-election, but those first 16 senators that were elected in 2020, they have served their 4-year term. They are up for re-election. So that is what we mean by staggered terms. So 4-year staggered terms, but what else I just said? Term limits? No. Texas does not have term limits at the state level, so they can also serve unlimited terms. This is also a part-time job. Well, there's less of them and they represent more people. They get paid more, right? No. They also get paid $7,200 per year, $600 a month. The leader, the presiding officer of the Senate, is a position called the Lieutenant Governor. Once again, that'll be important in a few minutes also. If we have formal qualifications, these are qualifications that must be met. We find these in the Constitution. Well, if we have formal qualifications, we're also going to have informal qualifications. Where are we going to find these? Nowhere. We just know that they exist. We know that these are the things that help you get elected. Race can be argued to be the most important informal qualification. Little bit of recall, a little bit of memory here. Texas population in 2010, I told you this last week, or 2 weeks ago. I told you this in that first lecture. 47% of Texans identified as non-Hispanic white, 37% Hispanic, 11% African American. I'm going to take it a little bit deeper. 4% is Asian American, 1% is other. Now, remember in that gerrymander video, she was talking about perfect representation. The blue dots had 60% of the vote. The red dots had 40% of the vote. So blue would have had 60% of the seats. Red would have had 40. Remember that? Do you think this is what happens? No, it's not. In the 81st legislative session, this was the one that began in 2011. So right after the census. 20% of the members of the Texas House were Hispanic. What percent of the population did I just say? 37. Is 37% close to 20%? No. 9% were African American. Texas population, 11% identified as African American. So, yeah, that may be close. That could be considered close. Told you 4% of the Texas population was Asian American. You think we have 4% of the Texas House is Asian American? Not even close. 0.01%. Guys, which race or ethnicity, whichever way you want to look at it, was overrepresented? Even if we take Asian Americans out just for mathematical purposes. We have 29% of the House that are minorities, that are Hispanic and African American. 29% of the House, but the population was 48%. 29% of the House. That means 71% of the House is Anglo, non-Hispanic white, while only 47% of the Texas population is non-Hispanic white. What about gender? Do y'all know what the current makeup is of gender in Texas? It's actually pretty evenly split. It's about 50-50 men and women. So do you think this means that 50% of the seats were held by men and 50% of the seats were held by women? No. What we saw that legislative session, only 24% ladies, even though you account for almost 50% of the Texas population, y'all only held approximately 1/4 of the seats in the Texas Legislature. Now, ladies, this is where I take out a minute in all my classes and I ask you, why? Why are your numbers so low? And I've gotten a number of answers. Traditionally, men have been involved in politics. They rule politics. I get men won't listen to women. Ladies, if you're going men won't listen to women, yes, they will. We will be convinced. We will listen to you. There's not many women running or in office because they don't run. I encourage all of my female students, run for office. Start small, school board, city council, something local. Start small, get experience, and move up. We will vote for you. We being men, we will support you. You just have to run for office. So please get involved, ladies. More informal qualifications. Helps to be a WASP. And apparently WASP is a term that they are not using in school anymore for whatever reason. Yes, I am old, I know it. WASP helps to be white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. This helps get you elected. Occupation. If you are a member of certain occupations, this will increase your chance of being elected. These occupations can be attorneys, doctors, businessmen. Most of the Texas Legislature are attorneys. But why? What is so special about these occupations that allow you to run, allow you to win? It's not understanding the law. It's not business experience. When you are running for office, let's think about this. When you are running for office, do you have to be articulate? Do you have to be able to speak well? The answer is no, but it helps. Do you have to be attractive? Once again, the answer is no, but it helps. What do you need to win? What do you need when you're running for office? You need money. Money is what's going to allow you to win your election, your race. So what's so special about attorneys, doctors, or businessmen? They either have money or they have access to people who have money and can donate to them. So money makes the political world go round. Money's going to help you win. Can party be an informal qualification? Can running as a Democrat or running as a Republican help get you elected? It sure can. In Texas right now, if you want to run for office in Texas, what party do you need to be? What party do you want to be? In a statewide office, statewide elections, you want to be a Republican. Exactly. So yes, party can be an informal qualification. Now, presiding officers of the Texas Legislature. I mentioned a minute ago that these were important, and I want you to know these positions, and I want you to know why they're important. The presiding officers of the Texas Legislature are really the power brokers of state government. Nothing is going to get accomplished without their blessing, without their approval. So the Texas Senate, told you, Lieutenant Governor is the presiding officer. The Lieutenant Governor is elected in a statewide partisan election, not districts. The entire state votes for Lieutenant Governor. He represents the entire state. What does partisan mean? Partisan means party identification. We know which party the Lieutenant Governor or the candidate is a member of. He is not a state senator. He is a member of the executive branch, but he's odd because almost all of his work is done in the Texas Senate. They serve a 4-year term. Now, let me explain why the Lieutenant Governor is so powerful. The Lieutenant Governor gets to decide which bills are going to come off the calendar for discussion, the Senate calendar. So he gets to decide what legislation the Senate's going to vote on. He gets to assign party members, Senate members, to committees. And this is something that's in your book, and we'll talk about it also in the next lecture. But he gets to assign members to committee chairs or in committees that are important to their districts. He gets to recognize people for debate, if you're trying to discuss the pros or cons of a bill. If he doesn't recognize you, you can't say anything. This position is very, very powerful. So that was the Texas Senate, Texas House of Representatives, Speaker of the House, presiding officer, Speaker of the House. Now, he is different, he or she. They are a representative. They are a member of that 150 people in the House. They are elected by the House members. So the House elects their own speaker. They have a choice. They serve a 2-year term as Speaker of the House. So every 2 years they win re-election. Then they have to come back to Austin and they have to run for re-election as Speaker. Most of the time they win. They have pretty much the same powers of the Lieutenant Governor. One I didn't mention for the lieutenant governor, but he has, like the speaker, is when a bill is filed in the Senate or in the House, the presiding officer gets to assign it to a committee. Why would that be power? Well, let me ask you this. You write a bill dealing with transportation. You file this bill. It comes to me. I am the Speaker of the House. And I look at you, my House member, and I have an important question for you. Do I like you? If the answer is yes, I send your bill to the Transportation Committee. If the answer is no, where am I sending your bill? Some committee other than Transportation. Why? Because I know this other committee won't work on it. So you will get nothing accomplished. You will not be able to go back to your district and say, I did this for y'all. I did something good. So that's one way they both. The House also appoints chairs, committee chairs. He puts members of his party on committees. Same thing. Legislative committees. I'll spend the next lecture talking about committee work, but committees are classified based on function, membership, longevity. Function is going to be their job. What do they exist for? What do they do? Membership, is it inclusive or exclusive? Inclusive means anybody's allowed in. Exclusive means it's private. So exclusive membership, is the committee a House committee or a Senate committee? Only members from that chamber can be on that committee. Inclusive means that members from both chambers are going to be on that committee. Longevity. Are they a permanent committee? Do they exist every legislative session, or are they temporary? Once their job is gone, they go away. So committees are based on these three things. I have some examples, but I really only want to discuss two of them. Standing committee and subcommittee can go under standing committee. Standing committee, they have the authority to write or to change legislation. A member writes a bill, it goes to a standing committee. They have the authority to change it, to amend it. Their membership, exclusive. Their membership is either going to be a standing committee in the House or a standing committee in the Senate. Longevity, permanent. They are going to exist every legislative session to every legislative session. They never go away. The other one I want to mention here, and I'll talk about it in length later, conference committee, their function, they compromise on legislation. The conference committee compromises on legislation. Their membership is inclusive. It is going to be both the House and Senate members. Longevity, temporary. Once their job is done, they disband. Once their job is done, they go away. Legislative staff. 31 state senators, 150 House members. You don't know it yet, but they've got a lot of work to do in a short time to do it. Do we give them money to hire people to help them? Yeah, we do. Do we give them a lot of money? Totally different question. We see that our legislators are provided minimal funds for hiring staff. House members, $13,250. That's not a lot of money. Senators, hey, they get more. They do represent more people. They get $27,500. Once again, still not a lot of money. This means that representatives usually hire 2 to 4 staff members. Senators, 4 to 14. Now, that $13,250 for House members, that is not per staff member. That is divided between all of them. So if you hire 4 staff members, they're not making very much money. Senators, they hire 14 staff members, they're making less than $2,000. Our elected officials, our state legislator, our House members, our Texas Senate members, our Texas House members, these are called citizen legislators because this is part-time employment. I'm going to say this a couple of times throughout the rest of the lecture. If I say it multiple times, it may be because I feel that it is important. The Texas Legislature, they meet for a total of 140 days every other year. 140 days every other year. So this is part-time employment. So how do they live? 140 days is about 5 months. So what do they do for the additional 19 months out of the 2 years? Well, like us, they have real jobs. I told you, remember, they were doctors, lawyers, business people. Most of them were attorneys. So most of their income comes from outside sources. However, we fear this problem can arise. It can divide their focus between their jobs and their legislative duties. What do I mean by that? Divide their focus. Think about it. If you're a businessman and you're a legislator, if you're a businessman, there's certain rules, there's certain laws you have to follow. As a legislator, you get to create these laws. Do you think it's possible that our legislative bodies, that our legislative people, our elected officials, do you think it's possible that sometimes they may pass laws that benefit them at the expense of the rest of the citizens of Texas? I'm not even going to answer that. That's an opinion question. Terms, once again, senators serve a 4-year staggered term. Representatives serve a 2-year term. We do not have term limits. They can serve as many terms as they want. We see that legislators experience a rapid turnover. Our legislators seem to be there for 10 years or less or 20 years or more. There's really not any of this mid-length people. Why? Why is there such turnover? Well, let's look at some of the factors. Factors leading to diminishing legislative effectiveness. Low salaries. $600 a month. I told you meet 140 days every 2 years, but does that mean during your off time you're not working? No, you're meeting with other legislators. No, you're meeting with constituents. No, you're trying to write bills. you're still working every month, and you're working hard for $600 a month. Short sessions, 140 days. Let me go bring up this next point to go with short session. Heavy workloads. Man, we want you to get so much done in 140 days. Can you do it? In the last legislative session, take a guess how many bills were filed. You know, my usual answer is I'm getting 300, 500, maybe 700. The last legislative session, over 10,000 bills were filed. 10,000 bills to be worked on in 140 days. Can you do it? No, you can't. But wait a second. We give you money to hire staff to help you. You mean those 2 to 4 people can't help you go through those 10,000 bills? Once again, the answer is what? No. Our legislators have inadequate staff and clerical assistants to help them do the job effectively. Now, compensation. I'm making this job sound bad. This is going to make it sound a little better. Not much, but some. Remember, this is a job. Legislators do receive compensation. $7,200 annual salary. Now, our legislators also receive something called a per diem. P-E-R-D-I-E-M. P-E-R-D-I-E-M. 2 words. Per diem, this is a daily allowance or a daily allotment for expenses. Room, board, whatever. Our legislators receive $221 per day for expenses for both the regular and special sessions. So if they are in their regular 140-day session, they get $221 a day for living expenses. So $221 times 140, for that 140 days, they're getting paid $30,940 for living expenses. Now, this sounds awesome. But let me ask you something, guys. If you don't live in Austin, say you represent Brownsville, say you represent El Paso, Amarillo, Lubbock, something else. If you live in Austin, if you live near Austin, you've got a place to stay. You can go home and eat your own food. What if you don't? You've got to purchase your food. Well, $221 a day can purchase a lot of food. But you've got to find a place to live. Usually not going to be able to find an apartment with a short-term rental, so you're probably having to look at renting a hotel room. If any of you have ever been to Austin, can you find a nice hotel room in Austin, in downtown Austin, for $200 a day? The answer is no, you can't. So yeah, it's still $30,000, almost $31,000. Sounds great, but there are expenses associated with it. I just mentioned if you live in or around Austin. This is for those who live around Austin, who are able to travel to Austin on a daily basis to attend these special sessions. I used to live the near north side of Houston, and my house rep She would drive up to Austin every day, spending her own money on gas. Well, the good news is they do get a travel allowance on a reimbursement basis when the legislature is in session. So she was getting reimbursed for miles. The bad thing is she doesn't get reimbursed until after the session ends. So she's got to go through almost 5 months of purchasing gas to go back and forth to Austin to be told, yes, we will reimburse you later. What's that going to do to your financial situation? Last thing, we are not nice to our legislators. They have not received a raise since 1975. That's a long time to go without receiving a raise. Limited session, this is time again. Remember, the Texas Legislature meets. We start our session on the second Tuesday in January in odd-numbered years for only 140 days. We meet the second Tuesday in January in odd-numbered years for 140 days. Out of the 10 most populous states, out of the 10 states with the largest population, we are the only legislature that meets biannually. We are the only legislature that meets every other year. The rest of them either meet once a year or they have a full-time legislature. Session lasts 140 days. What happens if they don't get their work done in 140 days? If the legislature doesn't do everything that they needed to do? Well, then the governor can call a special session. Special session can last no longer than 30 days. What happens if they don't get their things done in 30 days in the special session? This is the case, the governor can call another one. We see that these special sessions, they're unpopular with the public and the legislators. Why would the legislators not like them? Because this keeps them in Austin. This keeps them away from their real jobs and making real money. They don't want to be in Austin, they want to go home. Why would this be unpopular with the public? Remember that per diem I mentioned? If a special session costs us or lasts a full 30 days, this number is actually wrong. It's gone up because they've gotten that raised to 221. It's going to cost about $1.4 million. It's going to be expensive. We don't like spending money. The last thing I want to say, this limited session, this limited 40-day session, it works against deliberative, orderly legislative practice. Ultimately, it works against the public interest. What I mean by this is that, do you believe that most work gets done at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the session? As humans, do we tend to procrastinate? Yes, we do. So most of the work is going to get done at the end. You know, first 20 days. Man, we still got 120 days. We still got 4 months. After 80 days. Man, we still got 60 days. We still got 2 months. We got plenty of time. 15 days left. Oh, crud, we need to start working. So most of this stuff is going to be done near the end. Now imagine you're a legislature, You're a representative, you're a senator. There's 2 weeks left in the session, and the governor says, if y'all don't pass this bill, I'm going to call you back for a special session. You know you don't want to be there. I know you don't want to be there. The governor knows you don't want to be there. So, are you going to pass this bill that the governor wants so that they don't have that, so that he doesn't call a special session? Yeah, you're probably going to do it, and you're going to do it quickly. Are you going to vet this bill? Are you going to research this bill the way you would if you still had 3 months in the session? No, you're going to rush it through. You want to go home. How do you know you're passing a good bill? The answer is simply, you don't. This is why we say it works against deliberative, orderly legislative practice, ultimately against the public interest, because you could pass a bad bill.